Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, joined in by my co-hosts, Logan Horn and Devin Little. We're back for another Prospect Corner, and we're getting into the World Juniors coming up really quick, beginning of December. What's funny, we're starting our World Junior previews the same day as we did last season. Our first episode of the World Junior preview came out on December 5th, which is when you're watching it right now. So last year, we were talking about this same stuff. But there is something different about this episode, though. We're going to debut Logan Horn's first draft rankings here at the Hockey Writers. He is also our head prospect expert now, taking over from Peter. Peter's not going anywhere. He is still on the show. He's not on this episode, but he will be back, and we're going to be a foursome.
Peter, don't worry.
Yeah, he's still here. But he's obviously Peter's got his rankings out as well. Logan's, this is his first edition, and we're going to start off this episode doing that and going through his top 32 rankings, his first ones. But before we do that, of course, this show's being brought to you by the Morning Skate newsletter, jam-packed with all the great stuff of the NHL news, rumors, funnies, whole bunch of stuff that they go through every morning, Monday to Friday. Get it in your inbox. Click that link in the description, and you'll put in your email. You're going to get it every morning. So have fun with that. And it's a great newsletter to get every morning and with your coffee. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into Logan. Let's get into your rankings. First of all, great read. I mean, it was different from what we usually do. You did really good descriptions for each player, which we're not that ambitious. Peter and Devin and I, we would go and do a big thing at the top and then just list the rest of our rankings. So kudos to you for going through all that work. It was a great read. And so check that out if you guys get a chance. But we're going to get through and just start with the top five. Logan, go through quickly your top five for this first version of your rankings.
Sure. And first thing, thank you, but I'm not going to make that list any longer with that much detail. I'll have more people eventually on that list, but I'm not going to have like a top 128 that are all get that much work because I need my sanity. Anyway, all right. For my top five, easy first overall pick, I have Connor Bedard. Still a no-brainer. He's got 26 goals in 27 WHL games. He's just a monster, and he's not slowing down. He was pointless in his first game of the season, and then has got points in every game since, usually multiple. So he's just his release, his shot. I don't even know. There's so much that you can say, but it's all been said. I don't know. He's just wicked. He's going to score a lot of goals in the NHL, probably starting next season. That's an easy one. My second overall pick might be a little controversial at this point, but I have Matvei Michkov as my second still. Not by a lot over Fantilli, but his offensive instincts, his potential are just still so high. I think he's the second best prospect here. And I think if he played in any other, even just any other European league, he would probably have a lot more advertising. His public profile would be a lot bigger because of the whole Russian factor. It felt like a year or two ago, Bedard Michkov was being set up as like Crosby Ovechkin 2.0. But ever since the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, that has kind of just been dropped, and understandably so. But that kind of narrative would also have been helpful for him, kind of at least in the public sphere going up to the draft. And that has disappeared. He still played excellent in Russia. He was injured to start the year, so he played a lot in the VHL, the second tier pro league, but he scored a goal per game, added a few assists. And now he's an extra forward in the KHL. I don't really expect him to go second overall on draft day because he has a contract in the KHL for 3 seasons after the draft. So that's kind of a tough thing. If you're a team that's struggling and you need some help, you don't want help in 3 years. You want help now.
Yeah.
Which I understand. So he might fall, but I genuinely think he is the second best player here. Close behind those, Adam Fantilli, 3rd overall. Just great awareness on offense and defense. He's always looking around, always just taking peeks over his shoulder. He's the shoulder check king of this draft in my mind. He's just always paying attention. He's probably a really safe driver. A little bit of why I have him at 3rd is that he's on a really good team. There's a ton of talent surrounding him, and that doesn't make him look worse. It just, I just feel like it's contributing to his success a lot more than, say, Bedard, who's on a really poor Regina Pats team, in my opinion, and still going crazy. Fantilli's great. I would understand anyone taking him over Michkov because he can probably jump into the NHL next year. He's got the frame, he's got the skating. He can make the decisions at a fast enough rate to keep up in the NHL. He's going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
My 4th overall is Leo Carlson, playing in the SHL. His production has slowed down a bit after the first month of the season where he was like a point per game and everyone was like, is he Matt Sundin? He's kind of slowed down the production a little bit, but he's still playing great. Just one thing is the way that he wins puck battles in the offensive zone and then just peels off and goes straight to the middle of the ice, crashes the net, kind of reminds me of Tage Thompson, the Buffalo Sabres, but like Tage Thompson from the last year and a half, not the version before that was not a very good NHL player.
Yeah.
He's looked really solid. He's succeeded in the SHL as a teenager, which usually is a good sign. That means they've got the defensive habits, they've got the effort level, the skating, that would just put most North American prospects to shame, probably.
Yeah.
And then lastly, my 5th overall, someone who's risen a lot for me lately, especially at the Five Nations tournament recently in November, Will Smith for the U.S. National Training Development Program. Also just fun to have an NHL prospect named Will Smith. There's going to be jokes for him his whole life. Poor kid. But he's got some of the best hands in the draft, probably just behind Bedard in my mind.
Yeah.
He's so elusive and skilled, and he draws so much attention in the offensive zone that his teammates just get like easy tap in goals because he has there's so much gravity. He pulls everyone to him. Yeah. They're all staring at him, and then he just passes it off and easy goal. He's great. He gets a lot of touches around the blue line where he almost looks like Quinn Hughes. He's a center. He's not a defenseman, but the way he just is so fluid around the blue line kind of reminds me of Hughes. But instead of being a defenseman, he'll just charge right down the middle and get a ton of scoring chances. So I like him a lot. And that is 4 centermen and 1 winger in the top 5, no defensemen.
There we go. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also a testament now. I mean, how forward heavy this draft is. I mean, there's a lot of great forwards. But yeah, that top 5 looks really good. I mean, anyone's going to have a really good, again, we're going to talk about the next 5 soon here, but man, if you have a top 10 pick, look out. I mean, you're going to have a really good player again. You're going to get one, really elite guy. So Devin, looking at this top 5, what do you think? I mean, is this just, you just move them around, but what do you think about Logan's top 5?
Yeah, I think he nailed it, honestly. I know I still kind of subscribe. Excuse me. I know I still kind of subscribe to the notion that Michkov is still the second best prospect in this class. I think that there are a lot of, like Logan said, there are a lot of outside variables that make him maybe not the best. But if you're just, if you remove all the noise, all the other factors, and you just, judge players based on them and what they bring to the table, I still think Michkov is that better player. I think the best argument I can make for Fantilli over Michkov is that Fantilli is a center, Michkov is a winger, and obviously, you tend to value centers more than wingers. Well, Michkov is another animal. I think he just got talent up the wazoo. There's a reason why, like Logan said, people were talking about this being like a Crosby Ovechkin type of deal. So I like that you were bold enough to go and put Michkov at 2, Logan. Well done. And then I also like Carlson at 4. I'm like kicking myself still because in my first ranking, I think I had him at like 9th. And that was mostly me. Just I like Swedish players. I think that's pretty well documented on this show. And I was kind of pump the brakes, basically. Like maybe I thought I liked him a little too much. And so I put him at 9. And I probably should have just trusted my gut on that one because Carlson's fantastic. And I do think he's going to be a top 5 pick, at least now here in December, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, all things considered, like you said, we're going to be looking at this entire top 10, but you can't really argue with this top 5. The list goes on, and the first 5 are definitely worthy of where they are at on Logan's ranking.
For sure. I like Will Smith at 5. More I watch of him, he is really impressive. I think he's going to be one guy that's, I don't know if a lot of people talked about him as in a top 5 ranking a lot at first, but he definitely is that type of player. So we'll see where he actually goes, but lots of guys coming up. So let's get to that. Let's get to the rest of your top 10. Logan, go through 6 to 10.
Sure. So at 6, I have Dalibor Dvorsky. If I'm correct, he's playing in the Allsvenskan, second-tier Swedish league. What I like about him is his shot is pretty solid. He's got a good wrister from range. He can score on the rush or just kind of, I don't know. His wrister is not amazing, but it's not like Bedard, Fantilli, but that's a lot to ask. He's got a good shot. He's got a good slap shot from the right circle. He's a left-handed shot, so he just lines up there on the power play and gets a lot of one-timers. But he just looks strong and confident in a professional league as a teenager, which usually bodes well for players coming over to North America. I think he's another really well-rounded forward. 6 forwards in a row so far. Let's make it 7. We'll go to number 7 is Zach Benson for me, playing for the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL. On a team with Connor Geekie and Matt Savoy, who were drafted last year in the first round in the top 11, I think, both of them. And he has kind of outplayed them last year and this year as a year younger than them. He's a brilliant player. He thinks faster than anyone else on the ice, unless he's playing against Bedard. I think that's probably accurate in the WHL. But he's on the shorter side. He's 5'9" as a forward, which usually doesn't means they'll slide in the draft. But he's really hardworking forechecker. He skates hard at all times, which kind of calms some of my fears about that. I'm not an NHL scout, so who knows what'll happen on draft day, but he is a great prospect as well. Number 8, I have Braden Yeager. One of the best shots in the draft class. Really great release as well. Really good at adapting it. Like he can shoot through traffic. He can shoot around defenders, mid stride off the rush. Like he can do whatever he needs to score goals. So he's a lot of fun. At number 9, I have Edward Shala. Guy I really like here, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, really good at pretty much everything, skating, defense, offense, playmaking, goal scoring, whatever it takes. But he's not elite in any of those one areas. So I kind of see him as a top 6 winger who will just make everyone better around him, make their jobs easier by doing all the hard stuff. Aside from the goal scoring, I don't think he'll be a huge point producer in the NHL, but wouldn't be surprised because he's good at pretty much everything. Then the last player in my top 10 is one who's just been my favorite for a long time. Might be my British Columbia bias coming through, but I have Matthew Wood, who dominated the BCHL last year, the Junior A League in British Columbia, Canada. He scored like a goal a game and about an assist a game, and as a 16-year-old led the league in goals and points. And he made the transition to college hockey this year for UConn, University of Connecticut. Not a great team. And he's also the youngest player in the men's NCAA hockey, the youngest player. So, there's some questions about if his game would translate there very well, because he went from much easier competition in the BCHL to NCAA, and he's looked great. His shot is really solid. He's a big player. He's 6'3", I believe. His shot has looked just as good. He's putting up, I think he has 14 points in 18 games, which as a freshman, the youngest player in the league, that's pretty solid. One of the top producers on his team at 17. And the other thing that stands out to me is his play with the puck close to his feet. Usually big guys like that can't move the puck around that close to themselves like he can, but he's pretty slick there. So that's my top 10.
I love Matthew Wood. I think people know I love Matthews. It seems like all the Matthews are good, so it's good to pick them. But yeah, Matthew Wood has been really impressive. Like you said, he played in BCHL last season and really close to me. And he was on my radar from then. And to see him already performing at such a high level in the NCAA at such a young age, that's a good sign. So we'll see what he can do. I think he's going to be able to be a guy that could step into the NHL quicker than others. I mean, because he's already kind of hitting that in the NCAA. So I don't know. He may be pretty soon in the NHL. You never know. But yeah, Devin, what do you think about the rest of that top 10, where they're placed there?
Well, first things first, I can definitely attest to the fact that our Matthew was good on this show.
That's right. All Matthews
but
are
I do like Matthew Wood as a top 10 guy. I think that he's shown really well for himself. He's not playing for like the University of Michigan, right, where they're just loaded with guys up the wazoo. He's playing for the University of Connecticut. So for him to really be showing up and showing well for himself, I think that you can kind of separate the player from the team and say, all right, yeah, this is undoubtedly a really good player. And obviously I'm kind of referring to Fantilli there. And obviously Fantilli is a great player, whether he's playing for Michigan or for University of Grand
Miami.
Rapids, which is, yeah, literally. Yeah. Yeah. But the point is that, you can tell Wood's good because he's not surrounded by other like highly touted prospects. Yeah. And then I also just overall love the order. Great job, Logan. And I like we were saying offline, off recording, off the air. I like that you actually like kind of gave them the defining attribute and everything. I really like how this came together. And then I just want to say that I also like Sally as a prospect, and it's because of the fact that he is a jack of all trades type of player. I think that means he's got a good foundation in which you can build up on if you're going to draft him. Some players, they're a sniper, so it's like, all right, you got to lean into that. You got to make sure they're going to put in goals. You maybe don't need to work on their defensive game as much. Just make sure they're able to score. Other guys are, two-way players. It's, make sure that they can make a, whatever. Whereas a player like this, where they kind of excel in all areas of the game, maybe not elite in any one area, but they're good. It means that you have options when it comes to developing them. It means that there's not any one thing. You can't put them into a box. I think that if you want him to become a scorer, he's got a good foundation to become a scorer. If you want him to become a shutdown matchup type of player, I think he's got a decent enough foundation to where you can really work on that. I think that I like well-rounded players. I think I've said that a few times on the show. And I think that it's because of that foundation. It's because you have options when it comes to developing them. And it's because ultimately, when you've got a well-rounded player, when they do become the player they are in their prime, those are the players that you end up using in all situations, whether it's the power play, the penalty kill, or any crucial situation. Those are the players that you want on the ice. So just my little tidbit there for that specific player. But yeah, just to kind of wrap it up, great rankings. If you haven't checked out Logan's rankings, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. There's a lot of I like well-rounded too, because the thing is that jack of all trades thing. I mean, yeah, you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but being good at everything is not bad. I mean,
No.
it's not. You know, your coach can rely on you to do all and you know, it's not a bad thing. I mean, some players get weeded out because they can only be in the top 6. I mean, all the time. If they're not in the top 6, they're very useless. You don't want to be that type of player. You want to be a guy that can, you can be as good in the first line as the fourth line. So, you know, and that's, I think, the more valuable players coming out of the draft. I mean, there's not a lot of them to start because I mean, even though they are good at everything, they could probably improve on some of it, but being good in even a little bit in everything, you've got some foundation to build on. So, I love those type of players. That's the ones I gravitate to in the draft as well. Hardworking, work ethic, and being good at everything too. So, great rankings, Logan. Like I said, I loved how you formatted it. I'm not as ambitious to go through all 32 and talk about it. I'd probably go through just to the top 10 and that's it. But but great read. If you want to know about the play and the little tidbits, take a look at Logan's latest rankings. This is the only time, like you said, you're not going to be doing that for a top 100 or something. That's a Bible. I don't think anyone's at this.
I'm not writing a novel this year. No,
not at all. So, but check it out for the top 32. But we're gonna keep going though, and talk about some other prospects to watch on this rankings. Just pick out one or two. Logan, anyone else you want to mention in this top 32 that we haven't mentioned in the top 10?
Yeah, I'll give you one that I really think could start rising, at least in the public scouting area, and that's Lukas Dragicevic. He's a right-handed defender, which, you know, boosts your value, especially in the draft these days. And he's just tearing the WHL up offensively. He has 35 points in 25 games. He leads all WHL defenders as a draft eligible, which is crazy. He leads them all in points, I should say, just to be clear there. He's kind of a pure offense guy right now. His defense is a little below average, or maybe it's average, which isn't amazing for the WHL, but it's not gonna sink him at this point. He kind of reminds me of Kevin Korchinski from last year's draft, both in size and age in the draft year, and also in the way that I think he's going to rise a good bit as just a incredibly talented offensive defenseman, right-handed shot, which is great. I think he'll start rising soon.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I've heard his name a few times as we've started our coverage, so definitely keep an eye on him. Devin, you have anyone you kind of want to mention from the rest of this top 32 list that everyone kind of should be watching in the future here?
Speaking of players that are fairly well-rounded, player that's caught my attention recently is Colby Barlow, who Logan has ranked at 16th. He's caught my attention because he's been scoring a lot of goals, and that's a good way to catch attention, let me tell you. And that goes to the fact, absolutely. That goes to the fact that he's got like an NHL shot right now, and it won't be long before he is showing that shot in the NHL. But it's not just what he does, when it comes to shooting the puck. He's also got a pretty well-rounded game. He is a player that I think you could feasibly develop him into a penalty killer at the NHL level. It would take time, but I think you could get there. And I think he's somebody who could push and create some 2-on-1 opportunities on the penalty kill, and he'd be the finisher because, like I said, good shot. I don't know. I think that he's shown that he is able to make an impact. I think that he's shown he's been able to make an impact at an elite level for his age too. And I also, as Logan mentions in his rankings here, he was named captain of his team at just 17, and we all know how I feel about that. So we're a well-rounded player. He puts the puck in the net, and he's a mature player who leads the way. That's the type of player that I like. That's the type of player that I think most NHL scouts like. And it just kind of goes to show he's another prime example of the depth of this draft where, like I said, Logan's got him at 16. I think that's a pretty logical spot for him. And that is a playoff team. That's like the first team out in the playoffs would get Colby Barlow, and that's pretty darn good. So
it's not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Or actually, hold on, I gotta do math real quick. I think that's either the first team out of the playoffs or like the highest team that missed the playoffs. Either way, it's a playoff team. It's a fringe playoff team that is getting a player like that. So I don't know. We talk a lot. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about the top 10, the top 5, the top 3 of this draft. But even when you're a team that is pushing for the playoffs, you're probably going to get a really, really good player in this draft in the first round at least. So Colby Barlow is the latest example.
Yeah, and that's again. I'll mention a guy that's you ranked 31st, Logan, and Ethan Gauthier. I mentioned him. I believe I've mentioned him on the show already. Sherbrooke Phoenix playing for them, and if you read his scouting report, you can tell why I love him is his high motor, work ethic. Even if he's not scoring goals, he's out there working hard. He's out there forechecking. He's smart. He's a guy that'll able to, like I say, throw out there. You're not going to have to worry about him. Working hard and getting in on the forecheck. Like you said, Logan, in your piece there, he's cooled off from his hot start, but he's still doing the same stuff. He's still his work ethic is still there. His good habits are still there. And that's what you love to see. He is the son of Denny Gauthier, defenseman from the Calgary Flames quite a while ago now. And, but I think his son is going to put up a lot more points because first of all, he's a forward and he plays a different style than his dad did. And his dad was, like I said, I think I mentioned it before too, is that his dad, I didn't realize was a pretty good offensive defenseman for a couple seasons there. He had over 40 points for a couple of years, but I always looked at him as more of that physical type defenseman. And I think that's what he was towards the end of his career. But his son's going to put up a lot more goals. And to have him at 31st, that's a team that'll be the team that loses the final. So runner up. And to get a guy like that at 31 would be pretty good. So keep an eye on Gauthier, as I've said before. All right, well, let's go to the other way and guys that could drop. I mean, you've got guys, Logan, you've got guys up in, rankings change so much every time you do them. Do you see anyone falling that you kind of seeing signs that they could fall on this list?
Well, it's kind of cheating because they're not even on my list, but it's because they've fallen. Someone who I think is continuing to kind of fall, partly due to his own play, but partly due to the success of other prospects, is Cam Allen. Coming into the season, I was right with you guys. Everyone making rankings kind of saw him as probably the top D, somewhere in the top 10 to 20 range. Rightfully so. He looked pretty good in his first year last year in juniors in Canada, and then looked good this summer was at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. He played for Canada, looked pretty solid, but he's kind of struggled this year defensively, offensively, just kind of all around. It hasn't been really the year he's wanted. I have him just out of the first round. I don't know if he'll fall further than that. He's probably got enough goodwill stored up that if he starts to turn it around, he'll be back in the first round for a lot of people, including myself, probably. Yeah. But right now, he's definitely been a major faller in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he can definitely get into the first round still, but he is kind of falling off a little bit. But again, having a guy and you could get in the second round, and that's a pretty good defenseman to get in the second round. And he's been rated to go in the first, like you said. Devin, do you have anyone that you kind of want to mention as being a potential faller the next time that Logan gets these rankings out, or your next rankings, even yours?
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm going to go with it, because I think this is just a sign that I need to put out a new ranking here soon. Because when I ranked this player, I'm pretty sure I had him at like 10th, maybe 11th, somewhere in that range. And Logan's got him at 21. And I think that him at 21 right now is accurate, more or less. And it's not necessarily because of him, like Logan said with Allen. It's combination of things where it's also the players above him, doing great. But Cal Ritchie is who I'm talking about. And he's a player that I've had my eyes on basically since the start of the scouting season. I've really liked him as a playmaking center, kind of like a pure playmaker type of guy, and like as a legitimate center too, not a guy that maybe ends up going over the wing. I once upon a time thought he could be a Nick Backstrom type of player. I don't think he's going to be that type of playmaker. It would help if he had an Alex Ovechkin next to him, but that's a whole other argument. But maybe the team who gets Michkov will also get him, and then we'll start talking. But no. Point is that yeah, I think Richie has already starting to fall. It's not necessarily in that elite category as the other top 10 guys. But I do think he's still a top or a first round talent. It's just it's time to kind of reconfigure where he's at. Is he top 20? Is he top 30? I think that I know next time I do it, I'm probably going to have him more in the range that Logan's got him. And again, another prime example of a player that that is for sure a playoff team. I don't have to do math on that one. If you get Richie at 21, that's a center who I think has the makings of a legitimate top 6 center. It's just a matter of whether or not he's got the oomph or the it factor to be like a true elite talent.
Yeah, those are all great points for him. I mean, like I said, these rankings are going to change quite a bit. And even if a guy drops a couple spots, it's like whatever. I mean, it's not with this type of draft. I mean, dropping, rising. I mean, there's just so many good players, and it's hard to rank them all, I think, at this point. So I don't really have anyone specifically I want to say. The easy one is say Michkov. I mean, he could drop because of the fact that,
for sure.
Yeah.
It's just what circumstances being that they are. I mean, he can't play in any of these big tournaments, to showcase against his peers. It's unfortunate. He's not going to be able to play in the World Juniors. He's not going to be able to play in any of those types of things. And, not be able to watch a guy like that in those tournaments is kind of hard. So we'll see where he kind of ends up. But even if he does drop, I don't think he's dropping past 5, even if he does. It's just too good. I mean, teams are going to be like, well, we can wait, especially with the teams that are going to get these guys are going to have high end prospect pools. They're not going to need Michkov to come in and like save their franchise. I mean, I think teams could wait. I mean, second overall, maybe not. I mean, the teams that get him there may want a more guy that you're going to come into the lineup pretty quick, but we'll have to see. He's just an interesting prospect to watch because of what the circumstances are around him, right? Just because of his nationality.
the team that picks Michkov will also there's a high likelihood that they will have another high pick in next year's draft. So it's not like this is their one shot to get an elite, prospect.
True. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the rankings. Logan, thanks for providing that for our first half of the show. We're excited to see your next one. I think Peter's got does he have his top 64? I don't know if he's released those. I think he did.
Not quite yet.
Not yet. He's in the process.
He's got 32, I'm pretty sure.
There's no 64 yet. There's no top 64s yet. So Logan, you're right on par with that one. I haven't done a top 32. I don't usually. My first ones are usually a top 64. So that'll be coming out probably after the World Juniors. I like getting the World Juniors in there for my first one. So we'll see. So look out for 2 coming up, and 3. You're going to have 4 this year probably to look through. So it's going to have some fun. We'll be able to get some consensus together too, because Andrew's got his coming out regularly too. So lots of rankings going on at the Hockey Writers this year. So lots of content coming. All right. Well, speaking of more content, let's talk about the World Juniors because that's coming up quick. Like I said, this is the first, we're right on par from last year talking about this. So we're going to start with the lower ranked teams. I mean, the countries that aren't strong enough to kind of think, they're going to make a medal run or anything. Some may surprise. We've seen that in the past, but let's talk about Germany, Latvia, Austria, and Switzerland. Austria had a pretty good showing in this rescheduled one. I mean, they were pretty good. So, I mean, you never know, like I said. So Logan, we'll start with you and we'll start with Germany. And give us some players that people should be watching from this team. I know we're going to have our coverage at thehockeywriters.com about all these teams coming up, but give a sneak preview for everyone watching here.
Sure. Yeah. The player that I would focus on, he's on kind of the younger side of the, U20 age. This is Julian Lutz, who is playing in the German DEL, their top pro league there. He's a good two-way forward. He was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes in the second round of the 2022 draft. And I feel like there's a pretty good shot he's going to be a leader on offense for Germany. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
There we go. All right, Devin, let's move to Latvia, unless you want to mention anyone else from Germany. But if not, let's move to Latvia. Anyone from Latvia that everyone should be kind of watching out in the World Juniors here?
Yeah, I don't have anyone from Germany. I think Lutz is very much a big one to watch there. As for Latvia, I am going to highlight a defenseman, 18-year-old defenseman, by the name, eligible for this year's draft as well. Nick Svanenko plays in the Q for the, I'm not going to pronounce that, never mind, the by Kamo Drakar. Yeah, anyways. He plays in the Q. You can look him up, guys. Anyways, he's a mobile defenseman. One of his big things is that he's a very good skater. He's not afraid to pinch up and join the attack. I think that he's obviously we're talking about Latvia here. They're not exactly overflowing with elite prospect talent. So anyone who can push the play and try to generate offense, even especially from the blue line, I think that's someone to watch, and that's why Vanenko is definitely someone to keep an eye on.
There we go. Yeah, I think pretty sure we've mentioned him on this show before. I can't remember when it was, but that name sounds familiar. I think we have talked about him before on the show. So yeah, that's a great name for sure. Logan, back to you. Austria, too bad. No Marco Kasper. I mean, he's not going to World Juniors like we mentioned on the grind line. So can't mention him, but is there anyone else on Austria that people should be looking at?
There is one of my favorite guys in this draft class right now. Someone that I probably have a little high for some people's likings in my draft rankings. I think I have him at 13th is David Reinbacher. He's a right-hand shot defenseman, Austrian. He's playing in the top Swiss league right now. He was great in the second tier Swiss league last year, and his team actually got promoted. He's playing like a very big role there. Top four guy, top pairing a lot of the time. Yeah, he reminds me a lot, mostly due to frame and just kind of mobility stuff of David Jiricek in last year's draft. But he's definitely got more of a defensive game, a defense first mindset. Doesn't seem to quite have the offensive potential of Jiricek, but he's shown a lot more offensive potential in the last 2 years in Switzerland than people thought he had before that. So you never know. I think he'll be a leader for sure on this team, probably an A, maybe even the captain, but he's draft eligible, so probably not the captain. But on the ice, I think he'll be a leader and probably one of their higher profile players, and could really see his draft stock rise with a decent tournament on an Austria team that is going to miss Marco Kasper. They're going to have some growing pains. They don't have Marco Rossi anymore. They don't have Marco Kasper. So he's got to try to show that he's the next guy.
Yeah. And like we talked about defensemen not being, there's a few in that first round, like you have in the top 32, there's a few defensemen in there. And so we'll see how it all kind of goes, because, Austria, like you said, is not going to be a contending country in this World Juniors. Even with Marco Kasper, they probably wouldn't be. But so keep an eye on him for sure. All right, finishing off with Switzerland. They've had some interesting guys in the draft, and in the NHL, Roman Josi is one of them. They don't have him. He's not that young. So, Devin, you have Switzerland that should be looking at.
Well, I am going to talk about a Swiss defenseman, but not that one. And I am not neutral about this player either. I'm going to talk about Philadelphia Flyers prospect Brian Zanetti. He is he's a bit of a lanky kid. He's 6'3", 185. And he's He's a defenseman, like I said. I don't know why I ended up highlighting two defensemen, but here we are. I think he's kind of the antithesis of my last pick. He is not someone who's gonna drive offense. He's someone who's more gonna focus on his own end and try to minimize mistakes. I think his defensive awareness and just overall defensive play is kind of what his calling card is. And for a Swiss team that is more than likely going to get lit up by whatever team they face, they're going to need guys like Zanetti to minimize the damage. So keep an eye out for Brian Zanetti.
There you go. I believe 3 out of the 4 players we mentioned were defensemen. I think with Germany was the only one that was a forward, I believe, unless he was a defenseman too. I'm pretty sure.
No, it's a forward.
Lutz
is a forward. So 3 out of the 4 defensemen. So there you go. Watch defensemen. And if you're watching any of these teams, there you go. If you're looking for some defensemen for the draft for your team, be watching some of these teams. All right. Well, let's ask this question. Like I said, sometimes these teams surprise. Switzerland is always the one. Germany has had some times where they've surprised teams as well. So, Logan, do you think any of these teams have the capacity of making maybe the middle round? Or maybe that's a bit too lofty. But just surprising one of the big powers when they play them.
I think so. I think what would have to happen is they probably need to be able to sneak into the 3rd place in their group to get a more favorable matchup when everything's reseeded for the quarterfinals, if they want to make it through. But my team that I would pick is actually Germany, like you were mentioning, Matt. Because I think they could pass Czechia in the round robin stage if Yuri Kulich and David Jiricek stay in the AHL and don't come. Because if they come, they're actually going to be someone that I'd be worried about in the medal round. But if they don't have those 2 stars, then I could see Germany giving them a run for their money. Maybe, and then good luck, make some noise the next round. Like you see how Slovakia was pretty disappointing in the summer when they didn't have Slavkovsky and Nemec. So it could be a similar situation.
We'll have to see if any of those guys go. I mean, AHL.
I hope they do.
AHL, it's possible. I mean, they usually are a little more easy to let them go. If they're playing for the NHL team, probably not. But AHL, maybe. We'll see how that goes. And especially because it's just in Canada. It's not like they have to travel overseas to go somewhere. They're going to be pretty close to where the AHL teams are. It's not like the travel's going to be crazy. But we'll have to watch for that in the coming weeks here. Devin, what do you think? Anyone that you kind of see that could potentially surprise someone in the medal, or before the medal rounds here?
Yeah, I agree with Germany, and I think a lot of it has to do with just out of the 4 prospects that we highlighted, I like Lutz the most, and that's, if you got the best player, theoretically you have the best chance of making noise. I think when it comes to these type of things, when they surprise, what usually ends up happening is that a goalie is standing on their head, and the team gets some opportunistic offense, basically. And that's hockey. Like, that can happen in literally any game that plays ever. So it can happen, right? I think if Casper was a part of Team Austria, I would have felt a little bit better about them being able to make a little bit of noise. But without Casper, that's why I say Germany is the team that is more likely to make some noise. But just to kind of reiterate my point there, you never know with hockey. Goalies out of nowhere get on a heater, and pucks find their way in weird ways. So you never know.
Well, this past World Juniors, I believe Germany, their goaltender was really good throughout that tournament. So, I don't know the roster. I haven't looked really deep in the roster. I don't know what goaltenders are returning for them. But goaltending usually, like you said, Devin, are usually the one that kind of determines these things, because they're usually peppered with shots. So if the goaltending's not good, probably not going to have any chance. So that's why they're usually the ones that make the difference. Not just here in any game. All right. Well, that's our quick hit for the teams that don't have a ton of star power, but we'll have big shows on each of the bigger countries where they have tons of talent. We'll talk deeply into those once we get down to the World Juniors starting December, I believe. Yeah, regular time, December 26th, Boxing Day. It will not be postponed due to COVID this time. So we will actually have a full coverage this time rather than waiting until the summer like we did this past one. All right, well, let's finish off our show with our usual prospects of the week here at the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner. Starting with, we'll start with you, Devin. Who do you have as a prospect of the week?
Well, I am picking this player because I do think this is going to be the last time we get to talk about this player as a prospect. So I want to cash in on this opportunity while I can. You can call me a homer if you want, but it's time to talk about Jonathan Berggren one more time. The kid has been up with the Red Wings pretty much all of November. I don't remember the exact date he was brought up, but he's been with the Red Wings now more games than he's been with the Griffins. Mm-hmm. And he's looked as good with the Red Wings as he did with the Griffins. It was 7 points in 11 games. I believe it's because they're playing right now. I believe it's 8 points in 12. I don't know if he's gotten any more points. He did assist on the first goal. And that just kind of is why I'm picking him right now, right? He's making things happen. We always talk about prospects. When they're prospects, you always wonder, what happens when they get to the NHL. You never know. You never know if they're going to translate until they do. Well, he's doing it, and he's doing it in a way that is making the Red Wings as a whole a better team. And that's what I really appreciate because, we've talked about this. I don't remember if we were talking about this on air or not. I know we definitely talked about this, but he's making Joe Veleno better. I think that's a huge thing, especially for a kid in his first taste of the NHL. And I think that I don't think he's playing in the AHL anymore. That's why I say this is our last opportunity to talk about him as a prospect. I think that he has, even in training camp in the preseason, he showed he was really darn close to the NHL, and it just kind of was like a numbers game. Well, now that he's gotten his shot and he's making the most of it, they're going to have to make room for him because they are clearly, they have a more complete offense with him in the lineup. And that's what you hoped for out of this kid coming early in the second round. So, Berggren's season has arrived, folks. And, for all my friends and fans in the in Grand Rapids, we lost another one. This one's earned his wings.
There you go. Well, your hype train worked.
Choo. Pat is through the roof.
It is full right now.
Yes.
He's been really good in the NHL so far, and I think it is really close. Like you said, I think this is probably one of the last times we're going to talk about him as a prospect on this show. He's close to that graduation point, and he's looked really good. So, that's a great call out for prospect of the week, Jonathan Berggren. Keep watching him. I mean, he's exciting. All right, Logan, who do you have as a prospect of the week this week?
Sure. Mine is someone who's also on my list. I think I have him at 22. Quentin Musty, the Sudbury Wolves, plays in the OHL. He's a prospect who's been kind of on a pendulum this year, like at the start of the year, before the year started, on this side, maybe if I'd done a ranking then, I probably would have had him around the 10 to 16 range, roughly, just with his shot and his potential and being on the younger side. But then had a really slow start, and he was over here, and in my mind, he dropped quite a bit. He's on the way up. Honestly, today might have changed my rankings, but it's a little too late for that. Today in a game, he just scored 7 points. The Wolves won 13-2 against the Niagara Ice Dogs, I think. 7 points isn't bad, but it's not just a one game thing either. He's riding a 12-game point streak. He has 25 points in that time, which is excellent. So he's probably going to keep rising too. Like I said, he's got a great shot. He's got a July birthday, so he's really close to the cutoff just like a month or two away from being eligible for the 24 draft. So he's on the younger side. He's got a little extra time to fill in and develop that the other guys don't. So yeah, he's someone to keep an eye on. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, 7 points is okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, I can do that. Yes. And yeah, he's been insane. What do you say? 27 points in how many games you said?
25 in his last 12.
In last 12. That's like a 2 point.
Too shabby.
Like, it's not bad. It's not bad.
I might be able to get 25 points in like 3 seasons in the OHL.
Yeah.
12 games.
Oh man.
Oh wow. Yeah. And so he could be rising those rankings pretty quick if he keeps putting on those types of performances. That's for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about a guy we've talked about many times on this show, and he was front and center the World Juniors this past two, and he'll probably be front and center at the Memorial Cup as well, and the World Juniors. Logan Stankoven. And like I said, I've mentioned him quite a bit. He's off to another super start in the WHL, third in points, 42 points. Quite a bit behind Connor Bedard. He's got 61, but second, only 2 points before second is Andrew Christel, who's another draft eligible player. So Stankoven, he's close to being NHL ready. I think he probably is at this point. There's no surprise he's dominating the WHL again, but he's there. And I think Wyatt Johnston that's who beat him to make the Dallas Stars. I think if Johnston wasn't there, I think he probably would have been in his spot. But he's been phenomenal in the dub right now, and he's probably going to be a leader on Team Canada. I'm pretty sure Kamloops will be fine sending him to the World Juniors again. I believe it'll be his last year eligible. So he's going to be a leader on that team with a lot of guys that are graduated. Kent Johnson won't be there. Guys like that won't be there. So Stankoven's going to be a leader. He's going to score a lot of goals, a lot of points for Team Canada, and already has a ton of points in the WHL. I mean, if you want to know about him as a player, just go back to a bunch of shows we talked about in the past. Great motor, great work ethic. That's what I love about him. He's undersized, but he doesn't play like it. One of those great forecheckers. Gets a lot of goals in front of the net, even though he is a small guy. And so keep keeping an eye on Logan Stankoven, because he's going to be doing it for the next few months and into the NHL with the Dallas Stars, who already is pretty good in the prospect pool, and have a really good player in Jason Robertson, putting up a ton of goals. And he's really young too, not a prospect anymore, but he is basically that beginning of that core, and Stankoven's going to be part of that coming forward as well. So Stankoven, prospect of the week. Probably not for the last time this season, I'm sure. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for another Prospect Corner. Thanks, Logan, for providing us a segment for the show for another rankings. Got it out just in time. Got it out, I believe it was yesterday. Or this morning. Was it this morning?
Morning.
It was this morning. Recording.
Sunday morning.
So it was yesterday if you're listening, when you're watching this, but so take a look at that. Like I said before, take a look at those rankings if you want a full blown description for all those players in the top 32. And Logan, Devin, thanks for joining another Prospect Corner. Logan, you're taking over the hosting duties next week as head of the prospect coverage. You're going to take over the host. So
I'll let you rest.
Yeah, let me read. I'll be a panelist. I have to do a bit more work to be able to have some good answers. Because as a host, you don't have to do as much talking as a panelist. So, right. Well, take a look at that rankings. Morning Skate newsletter, morningskate.io. That comes every morning in your inbox, Monday to Friday. Kyle does a great job with this team there every morning, providing you with all that. All the coverage at thehockeywriters.com. There's draft, like I said, rankings are there. Our prospect profiles a little bit down the way. I mean, that's a few months down the road, but that's coming. First, World Juniors coverage. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. Actually, final rosters will probably be announced within the next few weeks. So keep an eye on those player to watch pieces, takeaways from the games when they do get started. And of course, we'll have our next preview show as well. So keep an eye on thehockeywriters.com for all that content, as well as, of course, all the other prospect coverage that all the other NHL teams do. They have, those regular prospect reports as well. So lots of stuff to read at the Hockey Writers right now, and as time goes on. Once again, that's been another Prospect Corner. I've been your host, Matthew Zator. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, Devin. We will see you next time on another Prospect Corner.